One question I do feel like we should be asking ourselves is, how long in advance are people really preparing for a match like that, Robert? Like, is it really the case that his performances and his games 6 months, 12 months, 18 months out, and Fabiano Caruana, who is currently facing off against Singapore's Jingyao, and they are playing, of course, on board number 1. You can never take this for granted in the Olympiad, so I had to do a quick double check there, but Fabi is on board 1, and we have a position where the swapping of queens is at least being offered at the moment in a very interesting mid-game where Black appears to have a rook sort of randomly stuck up onto the 6th rank. So let's go ahead and take a look at that for a moment and see what this position holds for us.
And I think we just saw, as Fabiano sits down, a move from the black side, bringing a rook. When we talk about the X's and O's in this position, it's even material. Both sides have, for now, a queen. That queen trade is offered. 2 knights, a bishop, 2 rooks, and 6 pawns. So exactly even material. Pawns are on the same file, so we don't have to cut the board in any direction. And Fabi just made a very quick move. He sat down.
That was super fast.
Moved down, and I'm wondering, what preparation he's done for this game. Knight to b3. He gets out of line of this rook, John, and now this knight, it may land on a5, especially without queens on the board. A move like knight a5 can be super annoying, staring into Black's camp and a loose pawn back there, but of course the knight needs to stay put, at least in some of these positions, covering the d2 square, because you do not want to see an enemy rook land on d2.
Yeah, exactly right, and there's a fairly natural looking, if the knight comes to a5 and it's really dangerous and it's staring down at the b7 pawn, great, I'll solve both of those problems by pushing b6, and I'll kick the knight back. The problem is, White can literally just put the knight back on b3 and say, fine, I'll come back here. By the way, that bishop on a7 now, that's literally a paperweight. What on earth are you doing with your pieces, right? So even though the knight can be kicked from that square, it's not that straightforward what you do in response. And that's why White is giving Black all sorts of questions to think about in this position.
And this knight on b3 will be very handy, not just because of the hop to a5, but if in fact these queens are traded, that allows White to control this d4 square, which is more important than it initially seemed. We typically think of attacking pieces, attacking enemy kings, going for checkmate, but controlling squares, that's the heart of the game of chess. It's not just about winning material, especially at this high level. And I do want to just take a step back for a second, because White probably does want to move the c-pawn right now, because being able to take the d5 square away from both knights is just kind of handy, right? Having that pawn there not really being challenged and taking that critical square away. But one thing I have noticed is that if White were to play c5, you begin to make the threat, or you make a very direct threat, of a knight coming into d4, and Black is going to struggle, because Black actually doesn't have any escape squares for the rook on e6 if White gets a move like that in. To what extent do we think that
That's quite a lot to think through when you're on the clock as well.
No, this position that we just saw, it was quite
no.
challenging. But it looks like Fabiano Caruana, he's on camera, a place where he likes to be because his position is not just good, it is great and winning. So Fabiano Caruana putting the finishing touches on this game, and this is a big win for Team USA.
Hang on a second. I remember when we last looked at Team USA, we had a conversation along the lines of Fabi's game was about as drawn as a draw could be, and there was some super exciting stuff going on elsewhere. But Caruana, while his opponent's job was to secure the draw, this is a very, very different evaluation and outcome from what we originally maneuvering from Fabi. Maybe we can take a look at how this came about.
Well, look at that final move, and we see the arbiter getting those signed score sheets right in front of the camera. Unfortunately, this often happens at chess events, but the last move played was knight g5 check, given double exclamation point. If black had a free turn, that's checkmate, or a knight coming in with check. The white king isn't perfectly safe either, so if we just go back a turn here, knight g5, the only legal move is pawn takes knight. The queen would take the knight now with check. The black king has only one legal square, and rook e8, a familiar construction. Queen and rook do the damage. You can't cross to f7 because the queen has it covered. The only legal move is queen back to f8, but if you're giving up your queen for a rook, you know that you are lost. So, John, way back when, you asked about a certain move, and I'm gonna give you a shout here, because in the game, c5 was in fact played by Fabiano Caruana. He did bring his knight, trying to bring that to d4. It happened just a few moves here. Take, queen takes b7, this bishop is cut off from f2, that's why the queen was free to go, and then here, the knight came to d4, hitting the queen, hitting the rook, bishop is loose, knight is loose, everything is loose, and Fabiano won shortly after this.
That is ridiculous on both sides. This is the on-pre attack. I've got no idea what's going on. There's a choice of pieces to take here. The white bishop is loose on b2. I get that a lot of pieces are about to come off the board, but is this something where Fabi was just going to win no matter what order pieces were being taken off in? Is this already the end of the critical part of this line?
Yes, I think that black is just losing material, and it's good to see these players communicate after the game, analyze, and I want to give a shout out to Fabiano because with this win, he has crossed 2,800 in the